we discussed, sir. What is the so up to this we covered, I hope, up to 14th. So can you please explain what is the format of format of HTTP request? What is the format of HTTP request and the HTTP response? Regarding what is the format, sir? What is the format of HTTP request and the HTTP response? Up to that we discussed it, right? Okay. So now what is the next one here is, these are generalized questions, sir. Observe a bit very carefully about this one. So what is payload in RESTful web services? What is payload? Payload in RESTful web services. Payload means the data what we are sending from client application to server, server application, or otherwise producer application to consumer application. Whatever data we are passing, that data is by default considered as payload. Remember this one, sir, that the data itself is considered as payload like this, right? Okay. Now, do you know what is payload in RESTful web services? What is the payload, sir? The payload is the data what we are transporting from client application to server application. Remember this one, sir. The data what we are transporting from client application to server application, right? This data is by default considered as the payload. Next, what is the upper limit for the payload to pass in the post method? Remember this one, sir. Sir, you know, if it is the GET request, how the data will be sent? Anyone, can you please tell? If it is the GET request, the end user provided data, partner application provided data. Do you know how it is going to send, sir? Yeah, the part of URL. Okay. Yes, query string. In the form of query string, it may be there, sir. Yeah, the part of query string, it may be there. It may be. So yeah, the part of query string, it is going to be there, sir. Okay, like now URL name is equal to Durga. Like, sir, this is the GET request. Correct, right? Can you please confirm regarding how the data will be transported from partner application to server application, sir? In the form of query string. In the form of query string, the data will be transported. Remember this one, sir. Okay. Now, if it is the post request, how the data will be, sir? In the request body, the data will be in the request body. The data will be encapsulated. Regarding data will be encapsulated. Okay. Observe a bit very carefully, sir. Data will be encapsulated in the request body. That is the post request, right? Okay. Like, sir, now take a bit very special care about this terminology, right? Okay. Take a bit very special care. So there is a limit on length of URL. That's why there is a limit on payload what we are sending as the part of GET request. What we are sending as the part of GET request. So there is a limit is there. But yeah, the part of post request. So request body data will be encapsulated. That's why there is no limit for the post request. Remember that. Okay, here have a look once. In GET request, the data will be appended to the service URL. Regarding there is a limit on length of URL. Hence, the limit is applicable for payload of GET request. But in post request, the payload will be encapsulated in the request body, which is not having any size limit. Hence, there is no limit. There is no limit on payload of post request. Remember that. Any doubt? Can you please confirm? Everyone in the position to understand what the meaning of payload? Is there any limit there for the payload? These words are, of course, the concept we discussed, but these words are new for us, right? Okay. Next, sir, explain. It is a very important, sir. Explain statelessness with respect to RESTful web service. Sir, have you remember, right? We covered already. Server application won't remember any client information, which is nothing but what? Statelessness. This is statelessness because of HTTP. HTTP protocol itself is a stateless protocol, right? Okay. Statelessness means complete isolation. Server won't maintain any information of the client. every request to the server is treated as an independent new request. Hence, with every request, client is responsible to send authentication information, also like tokens, etc. Clear, right? Explain the term statelessness with respect to RESTful web service. Okay, like you should have clarity, right? Okay, any doubt? Can you please confirm? What is the meaning of statelessness? The most valuable important question for the entire room. You should aware, sir. Friends, clear, right? Sima, if it is the post request, there is no limit at all. Okay, but anyway, it doesn't mean infinite length you can't take. Next, sir, I will observe. Explain the advantages and the disadvantages of statelessness. Can you please explain what are various advantages are there, disadvantages are there about this statelessness? Advantages, right? Sir, observe these things already we covered in the last session. I hope somewhere, sir. Otherwise, just observe. Every request to the server is considered as an independent request. That is, there are no dependencies to previous request. Obviously, that is the meaning of statelessness. Any previous communication with the client and any previous communication with the client and server is not maintained, and hence the total process will be simplified, sir. Because every request is an independent request, it never going to ask what about your previous information and so on. That's why processing will become very simple. Next, every request contains complete information, including your tokens, authentication, like so. Total processing will become very easy, sir. Next, one more advantage I can add. Without impacting the client, is it possible to restart the server? Regarding without impacting the client, is it possible to restart the server? Is it possible or not? Yes, friends, because that is the statelessness. Is server never going to worry about client or client information won't be maintained at server side without affecting client applications. We can restart server. Okay, like somewhere we had this point also, right? Next, what are various disadvantages are there? The biggest disadvantage is with every request, compulsory client should send extra information like authentication tokens, etc. It is a burden. It is a burden to the client application, right? Okay. With every request compulsory, client should send extra information like authentication tokens, etc. It is a burden to the client application. Remember this one, sir. Because have you remembered in the authentication application, by mistake, if I'm not sending token, then immediately it's telling authentication credentials were not provided. Okay, like we had the same. So if you are sending 10 requests, if you are sending 10 requests, right? So 10 times compulsory we have to provide tokens, right? Mandatory, sir. For every request, compulsory we require to provide complete information, which is the burden to the client. Remember that. Okay. Well, that's all. So, what is the advantages and the disadvantages of statelessness? Next, one more. Yes. Okay. If we are sending complete information every time, it may require some network traffic may increase and the bandwidth problems also there is a possibility. Yes, correct. We can add this limitation also. So it causes network traffic problems, and require more bandwidth, correct or not? Because every time I require to send complete data, network traffic problems may be a chance, and more bandwidth also required. Okay, this is also one limitation, right? Okay, well, good. So next, what is caching mechanism? Sir, very simple, sir. Caching mechanism. What is the caching mechanism, sir? Sir, it's a very simple terminology. Do you know in your college days, you may had computer architecture or computer organization subject. There, I hope you people may aware caching memory. Are you getting that? Primary memory, secondary memory, like caching memory, like you may aware. Sir, what is the need of cache? What the purpose of cache is, sir? Very simple. If any response repeatedly required, any response repeatedly required. Assume that, sir, you are asking server application. Server application communicate with the database. Communicate with the database, and it is providing required information. Suppose if this response multiple times it is required, sir. If it required 100 times, 100 times the database communication is a bigger problem. That's why this response can be cached by the front end application. Whenever end user is asking about this one, instead of server communication or instead of database communication, directly this cached response happily we can provide. This type of thing is nothing but caching. The biggest advantage is performance will be improved, scalability of the application will be improved, sir. Performance will be improved, scalability of the application will be improved. Remember this one, sir. Okay, have a look once. Caching is the process in which server response is stored so that a cached copy can be used when required, and there is no need of generating the same response again. Remember this one. How many times the response is required to generate? Only once. How many times the required? How many times it is required to generate the response? Only once. Only once. Remember this one, sir. So copy only once. The same buffered copy, the same cached copy, I will provide the response. So how many times it is required? Those many times. Okay, like that. So the main advantages of caching are it reduces load on the server, it improves performance of the application, it improves the scalability of the application, right? Okay, right. Next, only the client is able to cache the response under that too for a limited period of time. Remember that, sir, only client application is the responsible, can able to do that, cache of the response under for a limited amount of time. Okay. Next, internally, do you know these are the factors which is going to be considered while caching, sir. Mentioned below are the headers of the responses and their brief description so that they can be identified for caching process. Okay, time and the date of resource creation, time and the date of resource modification. Next, the cache control header, cache control header. Next, time and the date at which cached resource will expire, the age which determines the time when the resource has been fetched. So, do you know these are response headers from the server. Based on these response headers, client application can make a cached copy of the response. If we are going to provide cache control, is the like this extra information if you are going to provide, sir. Remember that. We know for every request cache will be generated. No. What it will do is whenever you are sending the response, if you want to maintain cache of this response, hey browser, don't communicate again and again for this. So please maintain one copy. Whenever client application is asking, can you please provide the same copy only? If you want that, then we require to set some response headers. Based on response headers, now this response will be cached or not, client application can decide. It won't do by default. Caching is not going to be do by default. We have to do explicitly. Maybe I may explain some project soon. In that, I hope I'm going to use caching, sir. Don't worry. Okay, we require to do that explicitly. By default, caching is not going to be happen. But remaining people are not seeing any response. Are you getting the things? Just all these are general terminology about what we have. General terminology about the Restful web services. DRF concept I am not discussing. Next, what is the status code and what are various possible status codes are there? So I hope we are the kings in this area. HTTP status code represent the status of the response like success or fail, etc. The following are various possible HTTP status codes, right? Sir, do you know 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4, 5 like this? 1xx means informational, 2 means successful, 3 series redirection, client error, server error like. Sir, have you remember multiple times we saw multiple times we saw several status codes while executing our API applications. Correct? Correct, right? Yes, friends. Multiple times we saw. Yes, there are 400, 403, forbidden, 503, 500, like that. There are multiple status codes we saw, sir. Now, do you know, have you observed the next question? List out some common status codes experienced in your previous project. What are various common status codes experienced in your previous project? Okay, like, sir, do you know code 200, code 200? What is this one, sir? Can you please tell? This indicates what? Success. Sir, best example, if we send get request and requested resource is available, then we will get response with the 200 status code. Are you getting? Next, 201. This indicates resource has been created successfully. If we send a post request and if the resource created successfully, then we will get 201 status code response. Whenever while executing your next API application, can you please think a bit carefully about these status codes. Okay. Next, 204, sir. This indicates that there is no content in the response body. So, best example, if you are performing delete operation, if the delete operation succeeds, then you are going to get a 204 status code. If we send a delete request and if the resource deleted successfully, then we will get a 204 status code response. Remember that. Next, when we will get 404, very simple, sir. You are asking about 3 ID with 3. I want a record with ID 3, but that ID 3 record is not available. Then immediately we are going to get 404. Very common, most commonly seeing status codes are in the web area. If we send get request and if the requested resource is not available, then we will get 404 status code response. Next, 400, sir. Do you know it means bad request? It means bad request states that invalid input provided, validation error, missing data, something like that. Suppose if missing data, validation error, something like okay, some data you didn't provided. Okay, like that. Then we are going to get 400 status code. 401 unauthorized. Have you remembered, right? If authentication information not provided, sir, you didn't provide your token. Authentication credentials were not provided. Best example, 1 minute, sir. Just in our material, the Django REST API. Okay, here just I'm taking what we have is authentication credentials. Authentication credentials were not provided. Okay, were not provided. Like, have you observed, right? If you are not passing authentication credentials, okay, now immediately which status code we are getting, sir? 401 unauthorized. 401 unauthorized, like this, right? So 401 means unauthorized. Next, 403 forbidden. Have you remembered, right? Have you remembered, right? Csrf verification fails. If you didn't disable Csrf verification, then we are getting what? Forbidden status code. Friends, correct? Okay. Next, while executing, while processing our request, if any exception got raised, then we are going to get 500 status code. Okay. Server has thrown some exception while processing our request, 500 internal server error. Okay. 500 status code, internal server error, like we are going to get that. So, by mistake, if any interview person is asking, hey, what are various status codes? Okay, what in HTTP, what status codes are there? Or in your previous project, which status codes are most commonly you experienced? Then happily you can tell all these things right. Any doubt? Okay. Next, so now what is the next one? What are various, yeah, what are various best practices that are to be followed while designing RESTful web services? Sir, it's the most important point, sir. So what are the best practices that are to be followed while designing RESTful web services? Okay, the following are various best practices while designing RESTful web services, right? So every input on the server should be validated. So compulsory, we did already without the REST API. So we developed API, right? Without DRF, without using any third-party frameworks, we developed API. I checked whether the provided JSON is valid or not. Whether the provided JSON is valid or not, we checked that. Okay, every input on the server should be validated. Next, input should be well formed. Next, never pass any sensitive data through URL. Means never pass any sensitive data. Yeah, the get. Yeah, the part of URL. Here, for any reason, for any session, the user should be authenticated. Compulsory security better to maintain. Only HTTP error messages should be used for indicating any fault, because HTTP error messages are universal. Page not found, internal server error. These kind of things are okay. These kind of things are universal. That's why better to use this. Next, use a message format that is easily understood and required by the client. So means that most of the times JSON like easily understandable by the client. Compulsory we have to take care. Next, endpoint should be descriptive and easily understandable. Okay, and easily understandable. Remember that. Okay. So here just observe carefully, sir. So these are some best practices while developing our RESTful web services we have to consider. Are you getting? Sir, up to these, how many questions we covered? Yes, 22 questions we discussed, sir. But very interesting thing is, in all these 22 questions, I never used the Django word. I never used any DRF word like general RESTful web service interview questions. It may be Java RESTful web services or .NET based or Django based, any RESTful web services. These are the most common things, right? Okay, like these are the most common kind of things. Now I will explain. So our discussed DRF related interview questions, right? So that you people can feel more comfortable. Okay, like. So now the remaining things will become very easy, because we discussed multiple times, right? Okay, very easily we can tell. Almost another 50 questions I prepared, sir. 50 questions I prepared, sir, for easy understanding of all the things, sir. But anyway, everything is there in our material. Don't worry. So other than our material, other than our discussion, I didn't add single extra question also. These are extra questions. What we may not cover these things in our regular sessions. Maybe statelessness. Usually I never give that much stress. Caching, I never used that word. Next, payload. These things I didn't use. But now, so here these are general questions. But now DRF specific interview questions I'm going to discuss, so that you people can feel more comfortable, right? So just observe that. What is explain? Explain the following: API, web API, RESTful web API. Already we discussed it, right? Can you please confirm? Already we discussed it, right? In our material, everything by default will be there, sir. Next, what are the types of web services? How many types of web services are there, sir? Please respond. How many types of web services are there? Two types. What is the first one? SOAP-based web services. Second one, RESTful web services, right? Explain the differences between SOAP and RESTful web services. Have you remembered, right? I gave you a big table between SOAP and RESTful web services. Okay. Explain the advantages and the limitations of SOAP-based web services. Explain the advantages and limitations of RESTful web services. Next, okay, like. Sir, now have a look once, sir. Here just observe that. 1 minute. 1 minute, sir. 1 minute. Okay, here just have a look once. What is API? API can be used for communication between two applications. Are you getting methods of communication between software components in the API? What is the REST? REST is an architectural style which can be used, okay, to develop web APIs. What is the RESTful? Okay, this is what is the REST. REST represent state transfer, representational state transfer. It is an architecture. By using REST, we can develop APIs very easily, sir. REST is an architectural style. It defines several rules or guidelines to develop web APIs or web services. Okay, like what is the RESTful API? So the API which is developed based on REST architecture is nothing but what RESTful APIs, sir. Okay. Next, here REST. This line is very important, sir. REST is basically an architecture, whereas RESTful API is an API that implements REST, that developed based on REST architecture, right? Okay. Next, all these things we covered. Next, and after that, here just types of web services. Sir, how many types of web services are there? 2 types. SOAP-based web services, RESTful web services. SOAP-based web services are, so what are various limitations are there? Next, what about RESTful web services? Next, what limitations are there? Okay, like next, and after that, what is the difference between SOAP and the RESTful web services? Of course, I'm not required to repeat. If we are going to repeat all these things again, another, so 2 months must be required. Just already we discussed it. Just go through that. Clear, right? Yes, friends. Is it already there in our material? Yes, that's all. Next, write a sample Django FBV to send a JSON response. Array, can you please write a function based? Can you please a function based view to send a JSON response? I want to send a JSON response, right? What is the way? Very simple, sir. If you observe that, this is my employee data. What I have, employee data Python dictionary is there. I want to send a JSON response. Convert this employee dictionary into JSON by using Python JSON module. Sir, here which module we are using? JSON dot dumps function we are using, sir. Return HTTP response, JSON data, content type application by JSON, like this. Any doubt? Are you getting the point, right? Okay, this is by using Python JSON module. How you can do that. Next, by using Django response directly. Sir, do you know? Sir, here Django contains JSON response. Django contains JSON response class. Directly you can send. Converting this Python dictionary into JSON response. This Django JSON response is going to take care. Okay, remember. So how to send a JSON response? I'm not using any DRF. Remember that, sir. Okay, write a sample Django class based view to send a JSON response. Everything is the same, sir. Only difference is, instead of writing inside a function, I'm writing that code inside the get method, post methods, like this. Clear? Any doubt? Okay. Next, from the Python program, how we can send a HTTP request? How we can send a HTTP request from the Python program? How we can send a HTTP request? Sir, obviously from the Python, if you want to send a HTTP request, which module is required, sir? Which module is required? Request. Request is the module which is required, sir. Once you import the request dot get base URL plus endpoint. Sir, this example we covered multiple times in our class. We discussed multiple times in our session. This example from the Python, how you can send a get request, how we can send a get request, like how we can send a HTTP request, right? Need not be get, maybe post, patch, and update, patch, delete, like all those things, right? Next up, from command prompt, how to send a HTTP request. Have you remembered, right? By using CURL and a HTTP PY, we can send HTTP. Either CURL you can use, HTTP PY. Sir, which one we used, sir? HTTP PY we used. Okay, this concept, this module we used to send HTTP request from the command prompt, right? Next, what are mixins? Explain usage. What are the mixins? Explain usage. Sir, once we are using the word mixin, immediately only one word should strike in our mind. What is that, sir? Code reusability. Regarding code reusability purpose, mixins are special type of inheritance, like it is a limited version of multiple inheritance, like mixins meant for code reusability. Remember that. Okay. Next, it should be direct child class of object. Next, it should contain only methods. It should not contain any variables. Next, we can't create object for the parent. So, because parent class functions meant for child classes only, like we had multiple discussions, right? Next, explain the differences between mixins and multiple inheritance. Yes, there are multiple things in the table form I provided, sir. Parent class instantiation is not possible in the case of mixin, but if it is a multiple inheritance, it is possible, sir. Next, it contains only instance method but not instance variables, and it contains both instance and variables. Next, the methods are useful only for child classes, but if it is a multiple inheritance, you can use for the parent, you can use for the child. Parent class should be direct child class of object. Parent class extend any class need not be object if it is the multiple inheritance. So mixin case and multiple inheritance, there is a big difference is there, sir. Okay, like sir, here next, of course, some note. Mixins are reusable classes in Django. Mixins are available only in languages which provide support for multiple inheritance, like Python, Ruby, Scala, like. But Java and C# mixin concept is not applicable. But the reason for that is because these languages won't provide support for multiple inheritance. Clear, right? Okay. Next, explain the usage of mixin with an example. Sir, if you want to convert our Python data, our Python dictionary to JSON response, here I am writing JSON response mixin. Regarding just I am writing JSON response mixin. Now I can use this mixin, sir. I can use this mixin. So if I want to send employee, if I want to send a JSON response, Python dictionary, instead of using JSON response, just call this render to JSON response method from the mixin, automatically, happily, you can send a JSON response. Sir, are you feeling these things are already known things? At our childhood, we covered already all these things, each and every point what I am telling, these things we discussed already, sir. Next, in Django REST framework, what are various predefined mixin classes are available? What the answer you can tell? Yes, list model mixin, create model mixin, retry model mixin, update model mixin, destroy model mixin, like this, right? Okay. Next, what is serialization? Okay, converting object from one form to another form is called serialization. Converting Python dict to object or Python dict object to JSON, some way converting general word. In how many ways we can perform serialization, sir? First way, JSON module. Second way, django.code.serializers contain serialize method. Third way, by using drgaf serializers concept. Regarding by using drgaf serializers concept, I'm defining my own employee serializer. Like we can do that. Yes, all these are things I explained already. Just if you want, you can cross check, sir. Next, that's all. Clear, right? Okay. Yeah. Sir, in the last session, we had clear discussion about general interview questions, general interview questions related to REST API web services, right? If you observe that general interview questions on RESTful web services, almost around 20 or 21, we covered already, right? Okay. So now the next thing we discussed, just already I started, sir. Next we discussed about you know, here just what we discussed is our the Django REST framework related interview questions. Django REST framework interview questions just we started. In the first 15 questions already we discussed, sir. Just mixins, what those, explain the usage of mixin with an example. Have you remembered, right? Yesterday we covered like sir, in how many ways we can perform. Can you please guide how many questions we completed, right? 15, right? How many questions we completed in the last session? Anyone? Yes, almost around 15. 15 we completed, right? So now next 16th one, observe how to use dump data option to display database data to the console. Have you remembered, right? So py manage.py dump data. So database model data we can display to the console, and we can write to the files also. We can display to the console, and we can write to the files also. Okay, possible, right? Okay, by using what? Dump data option. Have you remembered? Yes, how you can do that? What is the default format? Sir, how you can do that, sir? Here we can use a dump data to dump our database data either to the console or to the file by using dump data option, right? So this option provides support for JSON and XML formats. Regarding it is applicable for JSON and XML format, the default format is JSON. We can write this data to the files also. All possibilities we covered very clearly in our notes or in our material. It's already there, sir. Can you please observe here? By default, it is always going to come in the JSON, right? Without any indentation. If you want indentation, then automatically this is the second thing, hyphen indent. Okay, like sir, my requirement is I want to write this data to JSON file regarding emp.json. Now it is going to write to emp.json file. Okay, like same way here, just observe that py we are specifying explicitly at the JSON. Regarding the format explicitly at the JSON we can specify, but the default format is JSON only. Okay, like same way, sir, XML format I want, then how you can use like this, right? Next, dump data option provides support only for 3 formats. One is JSON, XML, and then YAML. YAML is also just another markup language what you people should aware. Regarding in our regular classes, I explain how you can use the dump data option. All these commands we executed already with the example. Have you remembered, right, friends? Array? Have you remembered, right? Yes. So just go through our that. Next, how to disable Csrf verification. Have you remembered? So just for testing purpose, it's not recommended in the production, sir. Just for test our API. If you want to send the post request, compulsory we should use Csrf token. We have to pass. If you want, you can disable Csrf verification. How you can do that, sir? So if you want to disable for a particular function, just a very simple, from django.views.decorators.csrf import Csrf exemptions at the rate Csrf exempt decorator we have to use for this function. So now for this particular function Csrf verification will be disabled, right? So if you are going to use function based views, then obviously this approach is recommended. Next, to disable at a class level. Regarding I want to disable at a class level for a particular CBV class based view, I want to disable, sir. What is the way? At the rate method decorator Csrf exempt name is equal to dispatch. If I can take name is equal to dispatch means for all methods of this class automatically Csrf verification will be disabled, sir. Remember that, okay? So next, to disable project level. Yeah, this is a very easy, sir. Who is responsible to perform disable? Who is responsible? Okay, to do Csrf verification, there is one middleware is there. Okay, which is already configured in our settings.py. Yes, sir, this is the middleware. If you are going to comment this one, now no one is going to perform Csrf verification, sir. So to disable project level, to disable class level, to disable function level, what are various ways are there? These are the things what you people should aware, sir. Remember that. Next, without using any third-party REST framework like DRF, implement the following HTTP methods functionality. Have you observed how to write? Can you please write sample code to implement get functionality, to implement post functionality, or to implement put and delete? Like I hope you aware, sir. The first 10 or 15 sessions we didn't touch DRF. Without DRF, how you can implement, sir? Sir, this is the example already we discussed, sir. Mixins, all those things, utils, URLs like yes. Here, sir, how you can implement the get functionality? This example, this application already we developed, sir. Get functionality. How you can implement, sir? Sir, this is the get functionality. Similarly, post functionality. Have you observed? Try to get the data. Whatever partner application is providing, is it JSON or not? If it is not JSON, can you please provide sir, just the 400 status code saying please provide valid JSON only. Otherwise, it is the employee data only. Okay, like now create a form, and can you please save that? This is the create operation, right? Post operation means I have to save this data into the database. Okay, like we have to do that, sir. Okay, like similarly put operation. Similarly put operation, sir. For the put operation, how you can do that? Okay, this is the way we can do that, right? Okay, form is equal to employee form, old data comma instance is equal to object. Instance is equal to object. What this one means, sir? What this one means, sir? Now already existing data, can you please update? Already existing data, already existing object, can you please perform updation? Like somewhere we covered detailed explanation about these methods, right? So how you can implement? Can you please write sample code? Like maybe a chance to ask. That's why coding level also better to have some basic idea about these things, right? Okay, well, next. Sir, this is the question. Of course, complete application, just I copy pasted, nothing. Sir, what are various frameworks are available to develop web APIs for Django application? Do you know Testify is there? Django REST framework like multiple, but old one Testify. But currently the people are going to use what? REST framework, Django REST framework for our Django applications especially, right? Next, what are various specialties of DRF? Okay, we covered, sir. Of course, this code, this documentation, just copy paste from DRF documentation, nothing, sir. So it provides beautiful browsable API, authentication support automatically there, DRF. Next, the serialization support is there. Okay, next, customizable everywhere. You can customize. You can define your own authentication class, your own permission classes. Every piece is customizable. Next, clear documentation is available and great community support. Sir, most of world top companies already accepted this one, sir. Okay, these are various silent features. Why you should go for DRF? Already other frameworks are available. Maybe a chance to ask. Then you have to talk about your DRF. Okay, like. Next, in DRF, what are the roles, what are the jobs of serializers? Can you please tell? Serializers are responsible to perform 3 activities. I hope everyone can answer. 3 activities are responsible. One is serialization, second one is the deserialization, third one is sir validation. Validation, like 3 activities. 3 activities are responsible. Every serializer is responsible to do that. Next, how to implement validations by using DRF serializers concept. So very simple. How you can do that? Field level validation, object level validation by using validators, right? Can you please cross check, sir? Field level validation. Field level validation. If you want to do that, then we have to write the particular validate underscore that field name. Are you getting? Validate underscore field name. Now, whenever you provided post or put, whenever you are providing the data, so that the data as per this one or not, it is going to perform validation. Remember this one, sir. This is field level validation. Next, object level validation, sir. So object level validation means, so total employee object, all the fields, any field you can validate. Need not be only particular field, sir. Now, sir, this is validate. Okay, validate. Now try to get employee name, next employee salary, like a multiple fields I want to validate. So if a name is Sunny, if the name is Sunny, and the salary is less than 60,000, rise validation error. Sunny salary should be minimum 60,000. Something like I implemented my own object level validations. Here how many fields I used? In name and initial both fields. So if you want to perform validation with respect to multiple fields simultaneously, better to go for object level validation. Okay, like we discussed, sir. Next, validations by using validator field. So very simple. You can define your own function. So here just a multiples of 1000. Employee salary should be multiples of 1000. Like this, I wrote my own function, sir. Okay, like if it is not multiples of 1000, then can you please raise validation error? Can you please raise a validation error? Like then how you can link this function with our ECL, okay, within bracket validators is equal to multiples of 1000, like you have to specify. So this ECL is sir, is it according to this one or not? It is going to check, sir. Remember that. So we covered already all these with examples. I don't think you are going to get some difficulty, right? Sir, if we implement all three types of validations, then order of priority here. So validations by using validator, validations at field level, validations at object level. Because sir, this one is the more specific. At the time of declaring field only, we are talking about. That's why. So validations by using validator will get a extra priority. After the field level, and then what? Sir, object level, right? Okay, that's even I showed by printing some print statements in the server console. I showed these things, right? Okay, well. Next, in DRF, what are various types of serializers are there? There are multiple types of serializers are available. Simple serializer, model serializer, nested serializer. Next, some more types of serializers are there, sir. There are multiple types of serializers are there. Remember this one. Okay, if you want all, just go through the documentation, sir. There are multiple types of serializers are available. Okay, like that. Next, what are various advantages are using model serializer when compared with the normal serializer? Yes, I told right. If it is a normal serializer, all the fields we require to specify explicitly. Point number one. Second point, sir, all fields we require to specify explicitly. First one. Second one, update operation, create operation. These methods we have to implement explicitly. But if I can go for model serializer, we are not required to specify fields. Automatically, fields will be considered based on the model. Okay, first point. Second point is create and update methods. Default implementation automatically provided by model serializer. So our life will become very simple. That's why model serializers are highly recommended to use if your data reflect a database model data. Clear, friends? Can you please observe? The fields will be considered automatically based on the model, and we are not required to specify explicitly. It provides a default implementation for create and update methods, right? Next, the model serializer won't provide any extra functionality, and it is just for typing shortcut. Next, how to define model serializer? Okay, like this here. Next, in how many ways we can specify fields in model serializer? Yes, ma'am. How you can specify fields? There are three ways. In Django forms, I hope I covered already. Django forms and DRF serializers, both the things will work simultaneously. Okay, in how many ways, right? Three ways are there. All fields are otherwise. All fields are otherwise. Only required fields are otherwise. Exclude the specified field. Except these, all the remaining fields will be considered automatically like this. Next, in DRF, in how many ways we can define view classes? Regarding in DRF, in how many ways we can define view classes? Like there are two ways are available. The first one API view, and the second one view set. Sir, API view and then API view and then view set. It may be tuple or list. No problem, Shashank. Exclude. It can be a tuple. It can be a list also. it is acceptable. Okay, like yeah. Now, yeah, comma I specified, don't worry. Okay, next. In the area, yes, how many ways we can define view classes? There are two ways of API view, and can you please tell in the API view, do you know API view set? What is the main difference between API view and view set, right? If you have more business logic, okay, very complex operations if you want to perform, highly recommended to go for API view. Just a very simple database, simple CRUD operations without any customization, better to go for a view set. In the API view, which methods we have to implement? Get method, post method, put method, patch method, like HTTP methods we have to implement. In the case of view set, method and names should reflect database actions like create, list, retrieve, destroy, like these kind of things by default will be there in the view set, right? Now maybe a chance by using API view class, how we can perform CRUD operations, how to implement get, post, patch, put, delete methods, right? Yes, the sample code, sample application, whatever we covered, yes, I just copy pasted, right? Remember this one, just go through. This application is already there in our material. Even we discussed in detail in the last videos, right? So how to implement by using API views, how to perform CRUD operations? Can you please write sample code? Maybe a chances are. Okay, like next, if we are using API view class to define CBV, then which methods we have to provide implementation? Regarding which methods we have to provide implementation, can you please tell get method, post method, put method, patch, and delete? These methods we have to provide because we are using API view class, right? Okay. Next, how to implement the CBV by using view set? I want to implement CBV. What is the by using view set, right? Okay, very simple. Same example, but the biggest difference here is, have you observed, right? It is the view sets not view set. So list operation, create operation, retrieve operation. Okay, retrieve operation, update, partial update, destroy, like these methods we have to talk if it is the view set, right? Okay, like next, if we are using view set to develop CBV, then which methods we have to provide implementation? Just now we covered list, create, retrieve, update, partial update, and the destroy methods we have to provide, sir. Next, explain differences between API view and the view set. Okay, a big table I discussed. Present in API view, present in REST framework.views module. View set present in REST framework.viewSets module. Next, method names reflect HTTP methods, but the method names reflect database operations for the view set. Okay, like do you know most of the business logic will be we have to write explicitly, but here most of the business logic will be generated automatically in the case of view sets, right? Okay, length of the code is more, length of the code is less, like multiple differences I covered, almost nine differences we discussed, right? Next, can you please spell out what is the role of rotor in view sets? What the role of rotor in view sets? In API views, we have to map views to URLs manually, correct? Obviously, in the case of API view, we have to define inside URLs.py for every class-based view the corresponding URL, right? But if it's the view set, we are not required to do explicitly. Default DRF provides a default rotor class to map view sets to the URLs which are used by partner application. So we are not required to configure URL patterns explicitly. Just register with the default rotor. That thing is enough. Default rotor is going to route the URLs to the corresponding view classes, right? Okay. Next, do you know what are various generic API views available in DRF? Sir, here one this line very important. Rotors are required only for views developed by. Have you observed? Rotors are required only for views developed by view sets. Okay, only for the view sets. Yes, these rotors are required. Remember that. Next, what are various generic API views available in DRF? Generic API views, right? Sir, and you remember all these things we discussed with the example. Generic API views. list API view, create API view, retrieve API view, update API view, like list, create the API view, retrieve like. So you know, I want to implement all CRUD operations only by using two classes. Which two classes I have to choose? Please confirm. I want to implement all CRUD operations by using only two endpoints. Which two generic classes I have to prefer? At least can you please spell out line numbers? I want to implement all CRUD operations by using two endpoints. Which two endpoints I have to refer? Okay, the first one is list create. Here, two operations by default will be covered. One is get operation will be covered. Next and after that, the second operation is post operation will be covered. Get and post. Get to get all, and then create operation. Right. Next, retrieve, update, destroy. This one is going to cover retrieve. I want to get a particular record. Yes, covered. Next, update means put method, patch method is going to be covered. Next, destroy means delete method is going to be covered. If you can use these two classes, then automatically, then all the CRUD operations we can perform no problem at all. Remember that. So how to develop API to perform CRUD operations by using generic API view classes? Very simple, sir. So the first one talks about list. Second one, list and create. Second one talks about retrieve, update, destroy. Only two view classes if you can define, then all the four CRUD operations happily you can perform, sir. So this one, by using this endpoint, we can perform list and create. Next, by using this endpoint, the remaining operations we can perform. Okay. So next, how to develop API to perform CRUD operations by using mixin classes? What is the code? What is the possibility, right? Sir, very simple. Employee list model mixin. Sir, how you can use model update model mixin, destroy model mixin, retrieve API view. Like, have you observed here? List operation is covered normally by using generic API view. Next, create operation covered by using mixin. Next, here update operation, destroy operation, next retrieve operation. That's all. All the five operations got covered. But anyway, I use mixins only for destroy, delete operation, update operation, create. Remaining two things I use just API views only. Okay. Now this example also we covered, sir. Next, by using which tools we can test the functionality of our API. Sir, what are various tools are there? Am I already covered Postman? How to test functionality of our API? Postman, Swagger, Csrf browsable API. Next, we can write our own client like Python script. Sir, there are multiple examples. I wrote my own Python script. Next, from the command prompt by using HTTP or CURL. By using this, we can test the API is working properly or not. Next, what is authentication? What are various authentication mechanisms we can apply in Csrf? Okay, like the process of validating user is called authentication. What are various types of authentications are there? Basic authentication, session authentication, token authentication, and then JWT authentication, like this, right? So next we can implement our own custom authentication mechanism also. It is possible, right? Next, what is authorization? What are various predefined authorization mechanisms available in Csrf? Okay, these are the process of validating access permissions of a user is called authorization. The process of validating access permissions of user is called authorization. Remember this one, I want to validate whether this person having the permission or not to access to perform this operation. Okay, like now Csrf provides several permission classes for authorization. Have you remembered, right? All these things am I covered? All these things I covered already, right? Hello, any is authenticated, is admin user, is authenticated or read only, Django model permissions are read only. Like all with the examples we covered. Even not only these things, sir, even I covered how to create our own custom authentication also. Okay, next, how to enable authentication and authorization for Django REST framework globally. Very simple. Inside settings.py, REST framework, default authentication classes, default permission classes. Default authentication classes, default permission classes, like we have to take. Next, so how to enable authentication authorization for a particular view class. But a particular view class means just we have to specify authentication classes and then permission classes like that. Clear, right? Next, explain permission classes, permission classes functionality. Sir, hello, any? What's the meaning of that? Can you please confirm? Hello, any? What's the meaning of that? Any person is allowed without authentication. Any person is allowed to access. No authentication required. He is authenticated. Boss, compulsory authentication must be required. Then only he can perform required operation. Sir, this authentication must be required, and under this person should be the admin person. Only admin person. Then only, right? Next, here is authenticated or read only. Array, authenticated person can perform any operation, but non-authenticated person can perform only read operation. Next, Django model permissions means yes, inside Django admin interface, yes, I defined. Okay, sir, how you can do that? Next, read only. Any person can perform read only, but remaining operations, if you want to perform, compulsory Django model permissions must be required. Okay, like we covered, right? All these things with the examples, right? Okay, everything is there in our material. Don't worry, sir. Next, Django model permissions, like explain. Yes, explain with an example how to define custom permissions. Regarding explain how to define custom permissions with an example. Explain how to define custom permissions with an example. Okay, like so how to define my own permission class. Okay, my own permission class. Very simple, sir. I'm taking permissions.py, permissions dot.py, like this I'm taking. So like just base permission like we have to take. Okay, this is the way how to define our own permission class. Okay, what my class is a read only. This is my own class, not a predefined permission class, right? Similarly, even example 2. So is get or patch. I want to provide support only for get or only for patch. I want to provide support only for get or only for patch. That's all. Okay, like that. Next, even I have a bit complex permission class based on my requirements I specified. Okay, next, in your previous project, which type of authentication used? Okay, highly recommended. Better to tell either token authentication or JWT authentication. Maybe a chance to ask, have you used OAuth authentication? As of now, no. If I'm getting the chance, definitely I will do that. Because OAuth authentication, anyway, we didn't discuss. If interview person is asking, okay, but most of the projects the people are always going to use token authentication or JWT authentication, sir. Remember that. OAuth is also common, but we didn't. Okay. Next, what are various limitations of token authentication, or explain the differences between token authentication and JWT authentication? Anyone, can you please tell why we should go for JWT? Already token authentication is there. Yes, friends. In token authentication, to identify user, every time we require to communicate with the database. Remember this one, not security. Every time we require to communicate with the database, unnecessary performance is going to be down. Performance is going to be down. Scalability will be down, sir. Because token won't provide, from the token we can't identify user. So by using token, we have to communicate with the database. Then the corresponding user information I will get, sir. But in the case of JWT, do you know? So token itself is going to provide user information also. Okay, token itself is going to provide. Have you observed, right? In token authentication, all tokens will be stored in the database table, tokens table. For every request, DRF will communicate with the database to validate token and to identify corresponding user. This database interaction for every request creates performance problems. Scalability of API will be down. To overcome this problem, we should go for JWT authentication. The main advantage of JWT authentication over token authentication is database interaction is not required to identify user. From token itself, DRF can identify user, which improves performance and scalability of application. Okay, because of this, JWT authentication is the most commonly used type of authentication in real time. Friends, any doubt? Okay. So next, how to implement the following authentication mechanisms: basic authentication, session authentication, token authentication, next JWT authentication. All these things already we discussed. With examples, right? Just go through that. So next, explain with an example the process of implementing custom authentication. Custom authentication. If you want to implement, what is the way, sir? Okay, very simple. This is the way. Custom authentication. We have to create child class for base authentication, and we have to override which method? Authenticate. Authenticate method. We require to do that. Even I explained with an example, sir. Even for customer authentication, I explain one more example. Username compulsory you have to provide, and the key based on these rules we have to provide. Like if this key is not following these rules, then automatically invalid person. Like once we are start using this one, then we are not required to use that lady token authentication or JWT authentication. I can keep my own authentication also. That's all. This is the example I covered. I hope you may aware. Okay, next DRF provides how many pagination classes? How many are there, sir? Respond. How many pagination classes are there? So three page number pagination, next limit offset pagination, cursor pagination. Are you getting page number pagination, limit offset pagination, cursor pagination, right? So when we should go for page number, normal, sir, I want all resources page by page, then we should go for page number pagination. Suppose my requirement is I want 23 records starts from 11th index onwards, 11th index onward, like so I want 23 records. This is the limit I want, starts from 11th index onward. This is the offset. Regarding this is the offset, starts from 11th index onward, 23 records if you want, then we can go for limit offset pagination. If we want the resources based on the specified limit and offset, then we should go for limit offset pagination. Here we have the choice to specify offset value from where we have to consider resources. Like, sir, if you want all resources based on some ordering, then we should go for cursor pagination. Regarding based on some order, I want, sir, then obviously we should go for cursor pagination. But I want top 10 highest salaried employees I want, or least salaried employees I want. Okay, some way, if you are talking about the sorting based on some order, then we require to go for cursor pagination, right? Next, how to implement filtering and ordering. Already we discussed with examples, sir. Next, when we should go for nested serializers concept. Okay, sometimes we can use one serializer inside another serializer, okay, to serialize model fields. Such type of serializers are called nested serializers. If there is a relation between the model classes, then we require to go for nested serializers concept. Okay, two examples I covered already with examples. Author and a book is one example. Next, a musician and album, like another example, like we covered, right? Next, have you ever consumed third-party external APIs in your Django project? What is the answer you can tell? Have you ever consumed third-party external APIs in your Django project? Yes or no? Did I respond? Yes, at least I have idea. To get the geographic information based on IP address, we consume the IP stack API. That's it. These are the 50 questions what we have. But anyway, my intention is whatever we discussed, just in the question style I'm keeping, sir. Just instead of list out the 50 questions, just with brief description so that our cinema will be revived. That's all. So total almost year 50 and the general interview questions also almost around 21 interview questions. Almost general interview questions 21. So that's all, sir. As of now, whatever I know, 71 interview questions. Okay, almost 70 plus interview questions are there related to DRF. These are more enough. Still, if any one or two things are missing, just go through the documentation and you can add those things also. Okay, next one more topic I have to discuss. What the topic? One more topic I'm going to discuss for you people. What is the topic is how you can implement a testing. So for our API. So for API testing, unit testing module, like how you can implement that. So that concept also I will try to add. That's all. Okay, testing anyway. API testing, a separate folder we are going to maintain. There you can see testing related videos. Don't worry, almost around 6 or 7 videos I'm going to take. All those things will be there.